Hi, today we're going to be talking about managing disruptive behavior in an ESL classroom. Teaching is already extremely difficult, but teaching ESL is even more difficult as the people you're teaching don't really speak the same language as you. You're trying to teach them a language, so there's a communication problem definitely. And it's definitely one of the biggest challenges in an ESL classroom, and it can cause a lot of disruptive behavior because students just don't understand. So today what we're going to talk about mostly are the 6 steps to managing disruptive behavior in an ESL classroom. The first one is, of course, to stress polite behavior with your students. The way you can do this is for yourself, first of all, to be a positive and role model for your students in the class. You can also model polite behavior and ask your students to be polite with each other. The next thing you can do also is review classroom rules, starting from the first class. And the last thing I would suggest would be to have some sort of a reward system going on with your students. The next step to managing disruptive behavior in an ESL classroom is to make a seating chart. This way you control who sits where, and you also control which students work with which other students, and this can be changed regularly. That way you can divide disruptive students or put together students who work better with each other. The third step in managing disruptive behavior would be to stop disruptive behavior as soon as it starts to happen. Call out the student and ask them to leave the classroom if it gets to be too disruptive, or you could always speak to them after class. Asking a student to leave the classroom might seem a little bit harsh, but if this is something that has been happening often, maybe you ask them to leave and you follow them outside and speak to them. The next step would be to separate students. So this you could have done with the seating chart, but if a problem doesn't happen until later on, it's much easier to separate them afterwards if you know that they are not getting along well. Stop a confrontation before it happens. However, that might not always be possible. So if students start to get into a physical altercation, don't try to stop the fight once it has started. Maybe you can run to your office and get the secretary or get some sort of help from any teachers that might be in neighboring classrooms and whatnot. You can also stop disruptive behavior by using nonverbal cues. So looking at someone in the eye while you're speaking or lecturing to the classroom, someone who's obviously doing some sort of disruptive behavior will usually get them to stop. One thing that I like to do is I like to move around the classroom when I'm teaching, so I usually try to get close to the student who's being disruptive or maybe texting on their phone or is not paying attention in general, and I like to get their attention that way just by getting close to them, standing beside them. It usually helps them to notice that maybe their behavior is a little bit disruptive and they need to stop. And the last step would be to apologize for the class. I would usually do this for a large disruption. Once you have apologized or the incident is over, move on. Don't dwell on it. Try not to speak about it and continue on with your class as normal. The class has already been disrupted. You don't want to have it disrupted for more time while you discuss what happened with so-and-so. Also, something that is extremely important is to not hold a grudge. You don't want people to feel bad about what has happened in the past, and you want to move on and continue on with your class. Therefore, not holding a grudge is an extremely important point. Finally, stay calm. Any situation that happens in your class throughout disruptive behavior, you can handle it. You're the teacher, you're the expert, you're essentially the boss, you're the pro. So just remember to stay calm, and there's nothing that you can't handle.